Now back to Inside West Virginia Politics with Mark Curtis.
And welcome back this Sunday to Inside West Virginia Politics. We're going to shift gears here and talk about some religious issues as well as what's going on at the U.S.-Mexican border. We're joined this morning by Rabbi Victor Urecki of Temple Jacob here B'nai Jacob here in Charleston, and recently came back from the U.S. border. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, obviously, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some of the Jewish holy days, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah. What is the significance of those days?
Those are considered the high holy days for the Jewish people. It's a time of reflection, a time of looking at the year that has passed, recognizing what we've done correctly, where we've missed the mark, where we can improve ourselves. And it's a day of days of awe, days that we approach and spend a long time contemplating, I guess, the difficulties of life, but the opportunities that life provides us and how we shouldn't lose those opportunities.
Does anything stand out in your personal reflections about maybe opportunities we missed in this country or in this community, or things we should be focused in on?
Well, for me, I used it as an opportunity to recognize my own shortcomings and things that I need to step up and do, both our community locally as well as internationally. Okay. We all have a responsibility for others.
Let's talk about that. You recently went to the U.S.-Mexican border to see the situation there firsthand. Give us some of your observations. Okay.
I was fortunate to join a group called the Jewish Council for Public Affairs. It's an umbrella organization of about 125 different Jewish organizations of all different Jewish denominations. It deals generally with Israel, anti-Semitism, and human rights. And immigration, refugee resettlement, asylum seeking is something that is near and dear to the Jewish people as a people that has been forced to wander for thousands of years. So we spent 3 days on the Arizona-Mexican border, spending time both on the Mexican side, talking with the Consul General there, speaking with Border Patrol, and most importantly, talking with people on the ground, especially people that are trying to get into this country legally and fleeing desperate situations.
And what are your takeaways? I mean, obviously, we have a huge public policy issue in this country, what to do about immigration reform. We haven't had any major immigration legislation since 1989, yet the problem persists. Any ideas on how to fix it?
Well, you put your finger on the problem. It's a very complicated issue, and it's not something that you can blame one administration. This has been an ongoing bipartisan shortcoming. It's been going on, as you said, since the late 80s, early 90s, and it's been exacerbated under this administration and at the worst possible time because of the push-pull factors that are causing the massive number of people to flee Central and South America.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people put all the blame on President Trump, and when in reality some of these policies were implemented or used during the Obama administration, the first Bush administration, the Clinton administration. So there's a lot of blame to go around, if you want to call it that. What do the people tell you? I mean, when you're talking to people from Honduras and other places deep in Central America, what are they saying about why they want to come to the United States?
They were heartbreaking stories. I'm originally from Argentina, so I heard their stories being told to me in Spanish. And as I was hearing them, I heard my parents as they came to this country. None of them wanted to come to America. They felt they have no choice. They're fleeing violence. They're fleeing government corruption, not corruption that we talk about in America, but where they fear for their lives. They've lost businesses. They've lost family. They've seen their parents murdered. These are people that are coming with nothing and trying to find the first place of safety. And the only place of safety, as we know, would be in America. If they would have their druthers, they would stay. But because of so many factors, they have no choice. And as I've been writing in my essays, as well as talking to my congregation, it's a situation that's going to get worse before it gets worse.
I understand both perspectives, too, why they want to come here, but I understand why people in this country want to have an orderly, legal immigration system, a process that works. We go across the street to the federal courthouse often when they swear in the new U.S. citizens, and it's a very touching moment, and I think people want to see that process go rather than people come across illegal.
Absolutely, but one of the things that I try to emphasize is asylum seeking and refugee resettlement. It's a legal process. The people we met were not illegals. These are people that are coming through one of our 50 border crossings that are legal. The problem is, because of shortcomings in a bipartisan fashion exacerbated by this administration, it's bottled up. Yeah. And what's happening is that when we were in Nogales, and so what we were seeing is people trying to get in, but they were given a number. It was metering. It's not remain in Mexico policy. It was a metering process, which means they've spent this long journey, they have nothing, and now they're going to have to stay in Nogales where they have nothing It's very unsafe. It's dangerous situations. If they're lucky, they can find a shelter that we found. And they're going to wait 2 or 3 months just to have an audience to see if they can come in to have an additional audience. And then we find out 98% of them are going to be sent back.
All right, well, it's an issue we're going to keep an eye on, especially as we get into an election year. Maybe something will get off dead center in the political world. We want to thank Rabbi Victor Urecki from B'nai Jacob here in Charleston for sharing your stories at the border.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And we'll have more of Inside West Virginia Politics after this break.